All right, welcome everybody to our meeting of our Vancouver Public Schools School Board. This is our regular business meeting for April. It is April 12th. I'm going to give everybody a chance. It looks like participants are joining, so we want to wait just a couple seconds to let people join in. We will go ahead and get started though with our roll call since we have all of our directors here. Director Decker.
I'm here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Sproul.
Here.
And Director Zavala.
Here.
Perfect. And I am also here. So we have all board directors are present. We will go ahead and get started with the first item on our agenda, which is the superintendent report. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Snell to share his report to us.
Thank you, Director Barros. I have 3 items, well, 2 really items in this, and then our Employee Excellence Awards, which Kathy Everidge will share. But wanted to start with some pandemic planning and response, and then get into programming follow-up from a January study session on highly capable. But first, this was a picture from my office yesterday morning. The start from spring break was a little unexpected. Across the community, unfortunately, a lot of damage from trees and limbs and things of that nature. And our crews here have been working really hard to make sure things are safe and relatively back to normal. We had some power outages as well, and staff, as power was restored, staff being there at all hours to make sure, our electricians monitoring, are things coming back online okay. And so I think this morning at 12:30 something, King finally came back online. And so it's just been a couple of days. And unfortunately, it sounds like we might need to be monitoring roads again in the morning to just make sure, as there's some snowflakes on our phones forecasts. So an interesting start to April, but as we were discussing earlier, it's been pretty unprecedented in a lot of the ways this school year and what you all have been kind of taking on. So related to pandemic planning and response, I don't have a lot of information tonight that's new, which is good news. It's been about 3 weeks with our optional masks, and that's been going well, and case rates continue to drop. And so that's really kind of plateauing at a pretty low level in Clark County. So I mentioned in a previous meeting that the way they're displaying that looks a little different. So I've shifted to that way now in these slides. And then also tomorrow is an important date as the State Board of Health has their meeting, and they're expected to make a decision on vaccination requirements. And I know a lot of patrons have been paying attention to that on, is it going to be required for public schools or not? And the authority lies with the State Board of Health. And so we'll be monitoring that. And of course, if they are required, then there's a whole lot of work that we've got to do to make sure that we're following the requirement. And if they are not, then we also need to do some educating with the community about what's next, because I know that's been on people's mind. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions about pandemic planning and response. Okay. So the next area is related to programming. And this is a follow-up, as I mentioned, from January study session, where you were presented with highly capable programming. And we've done a couple of deeper dives, kind of state of the programming. We've done this with dual language and highly capable, as directors have kind of wanted to understand what's currently happening with programming and where are there opportunities or challenges. And the challenge and opportunity that we identified here was the result of some good news, the increased number of students qualifying for services as a result of some of the changes that were made to the identification process, a little more inclusive with that. And then family choices that were related to trends going more towards the neighborhood model versus self-contained model. And so when we look at those 2 factors, they're kind of creating a challenge and an opportunity, as I shared, on how do we best meet students' needs moving forward. As a board, obviously in February, you adopted an equity policy. So that challenges us as staff to look at programming through an equity lens, which isn't, it's always more complex than just saying it, right? Like there's a lot of layers to that. You're also asked to approve an annual highly capable plan. That's part of the state's requirement for funding, for high cap funding. And typically that's done in the fall. The last one we did was last October. And it's pretty high level. And there's some reporting that we have to do related to the number of students served and demographics and things of that nature. So we're not asking for approval of a plan or anything of that nature. What we're trying to do is be proactive about when we look at programming and we seek to potentially make changes, we want to loop you into that process and starting in January, kind of kick that off. And so tonight we are seeking your input and feedback related to possible next steps. So I do, I'll pause here too, because I do have a point at the end for question and answers. I mean, you are always welcome to interrupt me, as you know, but I did build in kind of some time at the end. And then we've invited Dr. Erin Lark and Darcy Frank, who are program leads related to Highly Capable, here to potentially answer any questions as we get into the discussion part. So I did want to, since I'm new this year, I did want to provide just some context and history. And so we've done a little research related to kind of some of the transitions in Highly Capable. And I think it's important for you and audience members to kind of have some of that history. So back in 2013-15, the district established a committee to analyze the services that were provided. And the committee focused on assessment, differentiation of services, and growth goals. And they did determine at that time that there were some gaps in the K-5 services. And so that launched some research in 2015-16, just to kind of look at the different models and specifically looking at possible transportation for self-contained program sites. And at that time, it was determined that the cost was prohibitive and the logistics for making that happen was pretty challenging. And so didn't move forward with adding that in. In 2016, we've started to see the decline in families choosing self-contained classrooms for highly capable services. And that, largely the feedback that we've gotten is because of the barriers with transportation and also the connection to neighborhood schools, whether that's through just the relationships with teachers and staff, or programming like dual language or things of that nature. And so over the course of since 2016, we've seen a reduction in self-contained classrooms. And so that's went through a series of sunsetting, combined classes, different kinds of steps along the way that led us to our current model for self-contained, where we have a grades 3, 4, and 5 classroom at Eisenhower. So 3 classrooms there and a 4th, 5th grade split at Truman Elementary. So in the fall, our team led by Dr. Lark did a lot of site visits, data analysis, and then shared at the January study session kind of a state of highly capable programming and some of the trends that we were seeing. You provided some direction about doing some more outreach to families and staff, to meet with teachers and principals, and just continued review of the data, not just from the self-contained sites, but all sites. And so tonight we will share some recommendations that we've put together for your input and feedback. We're not moving forward with these recommendations until we feel like, that you're comfortable with next steps in the process. Just to highlight some of the data points that were shared back in January, we talked about the number of students that were served and how they were served. We shared the dramatic shift in the number of students identified, and I mentioned previously the change in the process from kind of a one test to a more inclusive portfolio process. You'll note here that our numbers in 22-23 are nearly 700 compared to nearly 400. And you'll also see that grades 1 through 5 are in 21-22. We haven't identified our first graders yet. That's a process that starts towards the end of April. So these numbers will go up a little for this year as well. So one of our goals is to make sure that we have better equity of access for these services. So I think that's really good news and a testament to the teams that are leading this. It doesn't mean we have it all figured out by any means. I think that there's always growth opportunities there. We also shared some specific data related to choice in programming, some of those trends that I mentioned. We try to think about, as you've asked us, well, what's behind some of those factors of why those trends perhaps. And as I mentioned before, that connection to the neighborhood school and existing programs seems to be a compelling factor, and the challenge of transportation seems to be a compelling factor. As you know, when you build a relationship with a school and then at third grade you are potentially moving the school, that's a lot. And so there's some challenges there with that. At a high level, the survey we launched this spring, we were collecting information from both families and staff, and we asked 3 questions, pretty open-ended, just about priorities of services, supports that are provided, areas for improvement, and an open-ended question just to kind of get any feedback that people might want to share. You can see a pretty good representation of our different elementary schools in both of those. And this survey was focused on elementary services primarily. Some of the themes that emerged from families included the desire to have more consistent communication about programming, instruction, and like how to support students at home. What does that look like? There was also some general themes of appreciation for staff, like a lot of love for teachers and the work that they do. There was definitely some inequity of services that were identified, and also some families asked about increased opportunities of self-contained services. Some families were also interested in learning more about how programs such as dual language and highly capable might work together to support their students. These of course are just themes that emerge as people are reading the raw data. For the staff themes, there was focus on increased professional learning opportunities and just a desire to have more support, more help for supporting their students. Specifically, staff asked about supporting the needs of multilingual and twice exceptional students, and what does that look like? And also providing social emotional support for students. Staff are very interested in specific school level support, and they also identified some inequities of programming and service models across the district. So we kind of come back to the challenge and opportunity before us, and what staff have done is just put together some possible pathways forward, and we would really appreciate your thinking on that too. So in general, we think that we should consider a transition to a consistent neighborhood model across the district, and look at how to do that by kind of scaling it in or transitioning over a number of years. And so either looking at the incoming third grade cohort for next year, or perhaps the following school year. We do not propose making any changes to the existing self-contained services for students. We think that it's important they started that program, so that they should transition through to middle school in that program. And we also propose expanding the neighborhood school support services with professional development opportunities and increased staffing at the neighborhood school level. Obviously, when you have 22 school sites, it's more difficult to do that than when you have a concentration of one self-contained site or 2 self-contained sites. So there's some challenges with that. So with this proposal that we're talking about here, the third grade next year or the year after would transition into a cluster model. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide of what that could look like. And then we would continue with the changes made to the identification process, as we're seeing pretty dramatic positive results as a result of those changes. So digging deeper into what this possible transition from self-contained to cluster could look like, the staff at the schools would be the same. Each year staff do move from schools, but in general, the proposal isn't to move any staff or do anything of that nature. So at each school such as Eisenhower, the staff expertise and experience from the self-contained program would still be there and could be there for a cluster program model as well. The student makeup of the classroom shifts a little bit in the proposal. And so in this example, we have 24 scholars, 24 students here. And of those, 16 of those students are identified from the neighborhood schools as receiving highly capable services. So they live within the boundaries, they attend that school. The other students that make up the classroom of 24, and not every classroom is 24, but just for an example standpoint, are students who have qualified for highly capable services, but maybe live in a different neighborhood. And so they're being transported to this school to receive these services. And so the classroom is 24, it's all students who have been identified for highly capable. In the cluster model, that changes a bit. The 16 students that attend the neighborhood school and are identified for services could still be in that classroom. And then the 8 students or fewer, depending on how many are in that grade level, right? It doesn't always usually work out perfectly that our distribution is always 24 per classroom. But that classroom would be filled with other students from the neighborhood school that didn't necessarily qualify for highly capable services. So the student makeup of a classroom with this proposal does shift a bit. And we also think it's important for schools to also have some autonomy in how they structure the classrooms, because different schools have different numbers of students who are qualifying for highly capable, and schools have different numbers of classrooms at each grade level as well. So some schools might have 3 classrooms, some might have 5, some might have 2. So how that cluster model is implemented could be dependent on the school and the numbers of students that are attending and qualify for services. So what we heard from stakeholders familiar with the self-contained model is that they really value the staff and the relationships that they have there and the expertise that the staff have. They felt that their students were really highly engaged in learning because of the specific instruction and activities. They appreciated the community building and the leadership development aspects of the classroom. And they felt that staff were really focused on the social emotional development of their student and not just the academics. And they really appreciated that. Currently, we are using highly capable funds we receive from the state to staff these classrooms. Really, the neighborhood classroom is looking for the same outcomes. I wouldn't say that there's anything different in terms of what we want for students in that. The proposed transition, though, would fund classrooms to the general education funds and free up highly capable funds to provide those supports that we talked about before: increased staff training, support for staff, FTE at the school level. Moving to a cluster model would also increase the diversity of learners in the classroom. Something that aligns with our district's larger work of inclusionary practices in the classrooms. We definitely have seen that students benefit when they're connected with their larger school community. And so we hope to accomplish some outcomes if we were to move forward with these recommendations. First of all, we would like to see increased staff training and expertise across the district, kind of building our collective capacity. Not just building teachers in certain areas, but across the district. We would like to see more consistency in services across the district. We think that we can improve communication with families about the services, and then really build on the success of the self-contained model with neighborhood students as well across the district. So that's kind of a short overview of kind of how we've gotten to this point. I would like to pause and just remind you that we do have Dr. Lark and Darcy Frank on the call as well to answer any questions you might have. And I'll just turn it back to you, Tracy, and to just kind of lead a board discussion around what thoughts might be for possible next steps.
Perfect, thank you. I have a question. Can you go back to that slide about the cluster, the 2 cluster options? Because I just want to make sure that I understand. Is this like a proposal, or is this kind of what you are thinking is currently happening? I guess I didn't understand the 24 students in a self-contained classroom, 16 are from the neighborhood school and 8 are transported. Is that like what's currently going on? Okay.
Yeah, so at neighborhood schools right now in a cluster model, there would be so 2 things would be going on, and Dr. Larkin and Darcy can help me with this too. But at a self-contained classroom, to fill the self-contained, then there would be potentially other students that are transported into that school that may reside in Philida or some other school. at the neighborhood school level is the model that's down below that's happening currently, is that we have students who are served, identified for highly capable services are served in a classroom, and there are other students from that neighborhood school in that classroom as well.
Okay, because I was just trying to picture how we have 16 students, like from one school, all, I guess I don't know if other board directors were a little confused by this slide too. I was just trying to figure out whether this is.
I think that number 16 is a little high. I don't think they're like at the Eisenhower one, and I may be totally off. I'm not the, I don't have the data in front of me. I don't believe that there are 16 students from Eisenhower currently in the self-contained classroom, but I might be right. And that only 8 of them come from like Polita, Sarah J, but I may be totally off by that. But I think that's what this is the top is. So at Eisenhower, they have 16 students from the neighborhood school that are highly capable, and then kids from other schools fill the space. But Erin or Darcy could probably speak to that better.
I was just trying to figure out if this is like what is the current makeup of a self-contained classroom, or like a proposal for a new way to look at it, is kind of what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, and I can jump in here for a minute. Good evening. Thanks for having us. So currently in the self-contained model, there is the priority for neighborhood school students who reside, in that neighborhood, who are identified as highly capable to have the spots in that self-contained classroom. And then it's filled up from other schools to complete that 24. So yeah, Kathy, you may be right. I mean, this may not, I think this is an example. So this isn't the actual numbers, but the idea is that the neighborhood kiddos are placed, the highly capable neighborhood kiddos are placed in that classroom, and then whatever space is left, students from other buildings can take up those spots as long as transportation can be provided by the parents. And then in a neighborhood model, it would be the same idea. The highly capable students would be in a classroom, but then other highly capable students from other schools would not be transported. It would be filled with students from that neighborhood, from that school in that classroom, in a neighborhood cluster model.
Thank you. Kyle, it looks like you have a question.
Thank you. So I like the general model based on what Darcy just said. I've always struggled with limiting capacity based on a set number of spots versus creating opportunity based on overall need. I just wonder, in some of our smaller schools or schools where there's less students identified, and I'm asking a big picture question here, is there ever opportunity to cluster across a few just school boundaries? I think that the model you put out in this hypothetical, it works because there's a significant number of students in the classroom. So, I look at a Lincoln or a Fruit Valley that has a real small enrollment. Like, would we consider clustering across school boundaries in some of those small schools, or where there's less students identified, just so there's the benefit of more students in the classroom?
And if I could just piggyback on that question, because it's kind of the same one, kind of similar, is that I think for me, I'm so visual. It would be nice for me to actually see, like, just the current situation, how many students at each school are identified in each grade level, and then how that clustering might work. It wouldn't be something that you could give me obviously tonight, but maybe, so this is how many kids are identified in grade 3 at Houck, and this is and what the thought on the clustering, knowing that the building has their ability to arrange it, but what it might look like, like Dr. Lark, if you had your druthers, how would that clustering work in those buildings? that would help me a great deal to more visualize like what Director Sproul said, which is, so what do we do if we only have 2 first graders in a building?
Sorry.
So anyway, no, go ahead. I'm done.
The materials that were shared with you earlier have those numbers in them in a spreadsheet for the students who were identified prior to this school year per school by grade. And then there's also those that have been identified this year, again, only 2nd through 5th so far, with the totals for next year so that you can visualize that, because that really is important to do. And you asked about Fruit Valley, and I just want to highlight a wonderful staff person there, Jennifer Dukes, and what she does for those students. They're because their current number, again, super small. What she's able to do is pull those students in a model that is reflective of what's going on in their classes right now with the different projects or course subject focus, and work with them on special projects or accelerating their learning and really customizing not only to the student, but also to the school and what they're working on as a community. And we've had a great talk about a garden project and some other things that they have there at Fruit Valley. So that's one tangible example of what is happening with that situation of students at a school where there are a smaller number.
Could you tell me what's Jennifer's title?
She is the I want to say the early achievement coach. I may be saying her title incorrectly. She works with the teachers to do that instructional support and planning and work with them on how they're serving all of their student needs.
Thank you.
Other questions? If you board members have other questions, feel free to jump in unless I see your hand go
So
up.
I guess I just want to follow up I think what I was going towards is, I think to try and to really visualize how this cluster model or neighborhood school model would work, like I'm trying to understand what the parameters are to make sure that the services offered to the students would be, how do we ensure consistency? Like, are we going to say, we're gonna do blended classrooms to ensure that there are at least 10 kids per classroom that are highly capable? Like, how are we going to define those parameters? And I use the small school as an example, but maybe a school has very few identified or a school has many identified, but like, are we going to define parameters to ensure that that experience will be consistent from school to school?
Yes, I think part of that is the influx of new students, Director Sproul. And so there is definitely a new trend line for the number of students that are served. And you'll see that pretty dramatically reflected by schools too, as there was an under-identification in schools. And you'll see it in 5th and 4th grade numbers. And then you'll see, twice as many students in 2nd and 3rd grade. So we feel like the capacity is going to increase for what you're saying. And then those parameters, I think, need to be tight enough to ensure consistency of services, but loose enough to accommodate a Fruit Valley versus Sarah J. Anderson with the numbers of students in classroom sections that they have. So it's kind of a yes and.
Okay, no, that makes sense. I think that, and my colleagues I know have heard this, and I know Dr. Lark has heard this, and I'm here as a board director, but I do have perspective as a parent. I think that there's a communication opportunity to establish what those parameters are. Just what does that model look like very clearly? What can we guarantee? Just so everybody's comfortable with what the services will look like for students.
Thank you for that feedback. We would have, based on reference information from the National Association for Gifted Children and the service models that they provide, and outline how services can be provided with a bevy. And I believe that the organization supports providing many services for students, not just one. You're pulled out here, you're put here. It's that we're doing all of these supports. That would allow schools to customize that in ways that would support some of our other initiatives, such as inclusive practices or the wonderful project-based learning that we're rolling out, so that they can provide more supports in a timely need, and then also be reflexive when students are in a different trajectory, depending on the school or their subject. And additionally, this would allow us to support students with single subject identification, which is really exciting.
So I'm gonna sorry, Kathy, I see your hand up, but
It's okay.
I'm gonna jump in. So my other question or concern I have, this is how it was done when I was growing up way back when in Washington State. And there kind of became a stigma in whether you were in it wasn't called high cap, but like, how do we control the narrative within the school communities that it's not, there's not a stigma around a specific classroom. So you have 5 third grade classrooms at Anderson, and one is kind of designated as the high cap cluster. And I don't just mean from a social, but, you know, parents wanting their kid to be in that clustered classroom, for instance. Like, how do we manage that so it doesn't become stigmatic? And that's a very open-ended question. So it's more like thoughtful versus expecting an answer.
It's not anything new that we're having to navigate. I think it's a challenge that we've faced throughout education as we try to specialize services and still have inclusive whole school experiences. We've seen it happen in dual languages classrooms where versus dual language versus non-dual language track. We've seen it in pre-AP versus non-pre-AP tracks. So it is something that's real complex to it. And I think a lot of it comes down to the culture that your school community creates and the way you create belonging in your school. But I think it's a question that's kind of like a guiding question as we continue to work on these practices, no matter what direction we go in, right?
And our social emotional learning, our second step, will hopefully help with that as well. So making sure that we are cognizant of those behaviors and that we have a way to work with students around the social emotional learning, and with our panorama data, being able to really, you know, have that student voice and be able to work with our students through that social emotional lens.
Kathy, did you have another question? It looks like your hand's up, but I don't know if that's from before.
No, it is up. And I'm trying to do that rather than jump in, trying to train myself not to talk over people. I actually have 3 questions at this point. So since Ms. Frank just talked about the social emotional, it is a concern of mine because when you look at the world, our high cap learners are high cap usually because they're looking at the world through a completely different lens than the other kids. And each of the high cap learners are looking at it through different lenses than each other. But there's often this sense of I'm different, and it's not necessarily in a good way. And one of the things that the self-contained provides is look at all these other kids that are different, kind of like me. And then there is that sense of belonging. And I have a concern. I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But I have a concern, and it's highly anecdotal. And Dr. Lark, I think I mentioned this. The reason why my daughter, who's now in her 20s, why we put her in the Then Challenge program was because in kindergarten, she came home and she said, I'm not going to read chapter books anymore because nobody in kindergarten reads chapter books. And so there's that kind of sense of, I'm the only one doing this. So how do we make sure, I know we've got, you know, second step and we've got panorama and all of that, but it doesn't necessarily address their sense of feeling different than others and therefore not belonging. So that's
Isn't that
question
what
one.
the clustering would help to do though?
Well, I will just tell you again from my personal experience, and then, you know, again, it's just personal experience. When she said that, I chatted with the kindergarten teacher, and she said, "You're right. In the 5 groups of kindergartners that we have, there's nobody that's reading at her level." So, anyway.
Well, and I think that's what I was asking, like defining those parameters. So to make sure that there's enough kids that are maybe going to find connections or find, you know, so what is it? Like, are there going to be classrooms where there's 2 students, or will there always be at least 6 or 7 or 8 students? Like what those parameters do, I think might, to what Kathy's speaking to, make sure kids aren't feeling like the outlier, but rather feel included. So understanding what that, you know, what those parameters look like.
And I'm also not saying that you have to give me an answer now, because it's always going to vary, right? From situation to situation, kid to kid, classroom to classroom, grouping to grouping. But I just want to make sure that we understand that clustering might not make that sense of I'm really different go away.
Okay, if I jump in.
Jump in, Sam.
I guess I also just want to say that I think this happens to many of our students feeling different. You know, our EL students are students who are first comers. Everyone feels different and maybe not included. So I think this is not just a high cap issue, right? This is a kind of, and this is also what encompasses our equity policy, right? I just wanted to bring that up because I know that this affects all of our students. But my question is more around, I guess I want to know, are we bringing in the voices of our current teachers that are high cap, and how are we honoring their experiences? I just hope with all of this information, I think it's great. I know that there's ups and downs with any changes, but I guess I want to make sure that we value and honor the teachers who have many years within this program.
I think I'm going to go ahead and jump in if that's okay. I apologize in advance because I have a whole long list that I'm going to work through. But I also want to thank Darcy and Aaron, because I sent a whole list of questions this last weekend, and you guys took the time. I couldn't believe that I actually got responses by today. So that was amazing. So thank you guys for taking the time to answer those questions, because they were not necessarily quick and easy kinds of questions. So I appreciate that. One of the things that, going through the slides, that jumped out at me for the survey results, the summaries, there was one on the family side and there was one on the staff side, and they kind of frame how I'm kind of thinking about this. The family, there was a comment on the survey summary that families were not sure on what supports were available at their school or if supports were happening. And that is like, that was a huge red flag for me. That's a huge concern. Like if they're not sure it's even happening, really speaks to why we have families, despite the lack of transportation, despite the extra work it takes to get their kids to Eisenhower, Truman, they're choosing that because they don't have confidence that their children are going to be appropriately served in their neighborhood schools. I mean, like, no one would choose that it's not the easier option, right? So for whatever reason, they're not feeling confident. And then the staff survey, it said staff, they need help supporting their students. They need help. They need more resources. They need more time. And that definitely jumped out when you looked at the raw data of the survey. How many times the word time showed up in their answers? They needed more time. differentiation is, it's not a magic word. It's not like you just say it and it happens. It's really, really hard work. And so we've got our teachers looking at that survey that when I looked at the survey results, it seemed to me that they have a lot of concerns about how are they going to do this just because they have so many kids with so many needs and only so much time. So those are kind of the two concerns that are always foremost in my mind as I go through all of this, all of the information. You guys have given us so much information to work with, and I really appreciate that. Also on another slide, there was a list of intended outcomes. And one of the statements there was that we want to deliver more consistent services across the district. And I absolutely agree with that. Especially seeing that families are concerned about whether or not services are happening in their neighborhood schools. To develop that consistency is really important. But when I look at the plan for clustering, I'm not seeing that's going to happen. And maybe I'm missing a puzzle piece. So I don't know. But when we look at the clustering, and it was described as intensive clustering, and I have a question mark there. I don't know what intensive clustering means versus just clustering, but the description sounded like just traditional clustering. If you look at the numbers, and you guys did give us the data, Kathy, you were asking for this. It's in the email that was sent today. There's a link because I printed it off.
Thanks. I saw that we got some that I haven't had a chance to look at it before the meeting.
Really interesting to look at.
Great.
But when you look at the data, you've got schools like Philida, like Chinook, that have enough kids in each grade band to create a whole class all by themselves. Versus schools like Fruit Valley, which Kyle keeps bringing up as an example, which is a good one, where you've got 1 3rd grader, 2 5th graders. And so what I see happening, and this was one of the questions that I sent this weekend, was what happens if you've got so many kids that you could create a whole class of high cap in that grade band? And the answer that was given was they would all be put in the same classroom. So potentially what we're doing is creating the equivalent of a self-contained classroom at some buildings, but only having 1 or 2 in a grade band in other buildings. And that's not consistent. So I'm not convinced that this is necessarily the right approach. I absolutely agree that we need to have high quality, highly effective services at every neighborhood school. Absolutely. I'm not the champion for maintaining the status quo, because anecdotally, Kathy, my son did not experience a sense of belonging in a self-contained classroom.
Right.
That was not the right fit for him. I have all kinds of concerns that have not been alleviated, frankly, and lots of questions. And I apologize, because the more information you give me, the more questions I have, and I'm trying really hard. But one of my concerns that keeps coming up is that I'm not necessarily seeing, and maybe I'm just missing the pieces. And I'm absolutely open to like being convinced, absolutely. Because I want our neighborhood schools to be absolutely highly effective at this. But what I don't see is how this plan will better support our students in the neighborhood schools, and specifically our ELL learners and our twice exceptional students. I think it doesn't have to be one or the other, it doesn't have to be self-contained as we've had it. It doesn't have to be neighborhood schools as we've had it. I'm open to hearing all kinds of ideas. And Jeff, you said the same thing. There are other opportunities to explore other options here. But one thing I do want to say is that I don't think we can, or maybe we shouldn't, expect to change the program and keep it for the same dollar amount. And if we need to talk about what the costs are of changing it and improving it in different ways, and have a conversation about whether it's worth it, that's a good conversation to have. But to keep us stuck because we have a dollar amount that it has been in the past, and not explore other options and weigh the benefits of potentially spending some more money, I think those are good conversations to have. They're not conversations to necessarily shy away from. And maybe we look at it and we decide it's not necessarily going to get us what we need for the extra money. But I think we need to maybe allow ourselves to explore it a little bit. I think I got to the end of my list. Sorry.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. I put my hand up so that I could get in line rather than calling on people. I feel like, Wendy, you have articulated very clearly kind of some of the same thoughts that I have had, and that it's very apparent to me as I'm reading through everything that there are inconsistencies with the experiences that our high cap students and families have. And how to remedy that is, the question. But then, it's obvious that there are some concerns over the actual services happening in neighborhood school, and what is that really going to look like, or how are we going to better that? Because I think about, it seems like a lot is then falling to the general education teacher to then differentiate or to meet those needs. And I just want to make sure, I guess I would like to make sure, I just worry that that's kind of put, the span of how teachers are differentiating. And our services really, is that what the services are? Differentiation, or I guess I think Erin had talked about earlier, like there's a whole option of what services look like. And I think that's where I keep going back to, is what really is it going to look like other than clustering? And then perhaps if I have this cluster of students, well, they're going to get this extra or do this, just making sure that it really is high quality in terms of the services, is kind of is what I keep going back to. I think, Kathy, your hand was up, and then Kyle.
Yes, thank you. And I only, in all that time that I spoke, I only had talked to one of my questions. And then I added one while we were talking. So kind of to the, I guess, combining these two questions, like both Tracy and Wendy's concerns. First of all, professional development is certainly not enough, right? We all know PD is sweet sometimes it's boring, and it's not like, so how do I translate that into my classroom? What does that look like? What's the curriculum that's going to support me? Where do I start? What's the first, what's the lesson I'm going to do? Or how am I going to do this lesson with 20 other kids in the room? Or all of those things. So PD is necessary, but certainly not sufficient. I think we need to be looking at some curriculum support, like what are things we are going to do? Here are things you can do. And I'm sure, Dr. Lark, that you have thought this through. And I'm going to bring up something like a very big blast from the very past. In the 90s, we were talking about personal education programs, sort of like IEPs, but not for kids that qualify for IEPs. I actually helped develop a personal education program system in Corvallis in the 90s. And something along those lines, where the parents and maybe the highly capable expert and the classroom teachers sit down and develop a strategic plan for these kids or this group of kids or whatever, and then it's followed. It's amazing communication with the parents. It's amazing ownership for the kids. It's amazing. It's so helpful for the teacher because they know what direction they're going with this specific child. They're not just said, hey, here's a couple of highly capable kids and now differentiate. But I won't go on and on. But anyway, and then as far as communication with families, this is my final little blurb, I think. It was interesting in emails back and forth with Dr. Snell. One of the comments that was made in one of our back and forth was, and some of our families don't even know what to advocate for. And that to me is a giant red flag, because a lot of people don't know what they don't know. They don't know what their kid deserves to get, what their kid should get, what is available to them, what isn't available to them. They don't even know how to speak to it. A lot of times they get that notice in the mail, your kid qualifies for highly capable services, check the box in the next, I don't even know what the timeline is anymore. For us, it was like a turnaround of a week. You know, do you want them in self-contained or do you not? And if I am a non-English speaking parent who maybe I didn't finish school, I have no idea what, and you know what this is, who do I talk to about this? And I don't have time to talk to anybody about it because the turnaround time is so fast. And I think, and Dr. Lark, I know that you are working on developing some better communication plans, but that one is so, I think that's like the first thing. It's like, how do we tell parents what this is and what's available to them? And then they can start advocating for their kids. Because we can't, you know, the 5 of us board members, we can talk about what we think people are looking for and what our concerns are, but we can't speak for everyone because we don't have everyone's, I mean, Director Smith's and my experience in this program, and you know, is totally different. And there are people that don't even know that a program exists. So those are my 3. PD is just not sufficient. There needs a lot more support. And in order to make sure that people know, parents know what their kids are working on, if they're classified as highly capable, some sort of personalized education plan or whatever you want to call it. And then we need to really be proactive about our communication with families. I mean, we require parents to come to study sessions if they want to be in any of the other programs. We should have that for our highly capable families too. Done.
Director Sproul, you have your hand up.
Let me lower my hand here. So I also am going to say that Wendy articulated a few points that I think I was struggling with earlier when I kept talking about parameters, but it does concern me that the cluster model is going to be inconsistent across the district. And so I want students not necessarily need to have strong parent advocates because not everyone has access. I want us to deliver high quality services in every building. And I know that that's not easy and it takes a lot of work. So I guess what I'm going to say, and I'm coming around from questions to my summary, is I feel like we need more time to dig in. I feel like there are more than just self-contained versus community school models. I feel like there are some creative solutions in other districts across the state that we should be considering. I feel like we need to have a structure around what the neighborhood school model will look like and what the minimum guarantee we can do. I love the idea of a personalized education plan. I don't know if we can do 22,000 IEPs. So short of that, I think that we should at least be able to communicate and market to our families, what can you expect in your neighborhood school? I also think, you know, when we talked in January, there's a lot of conversation about getting more feedback, and I'm so thankful for the survey data. I think there's more digging we need to do. I think we need to look at what the long-term data is. So the students that went through highly capable, I'd love to see an analysis about how that impacted high school student outcomes. Like, where did they end up? Like, what schools did they do? How many were in, you know, college classes in high school? I would love to do more digging. I'd also love to see more interactive conversations. We have been bombarded by communication from very passionate parents in the last couple of weeks, and I appreciate their energy around advocating for their students. But I think that what's important is that there is clearly a sense of exclusion, that families who are participating in the program currently have felt excluded. So how do we, is it focus groups? How do we make it a more interactive feedback process? I ultimately understand. There are huge equity issues in the current model. So I am not advocating that we are stagnant in the current model. It does not work. We are serving a small number of students very well, and there's a lot of students that are not getting what they need. I hands down know that, and I am 100% on board in the way that we have expanded our strategy of identifying students and making it more dimensional, and recognizing that students can be highly capable in math and maybe their reading skills are on grade level, and that is something to celebrate, and we will create an education for them. I love that we're adding dimension to this. I'm very apprehensive that we make this change for next school year, because I think that what we need is a plan for what this looks like. So it's tangible plan for what it looks like. What's the investment? Can we make that investment? What are the trade-offs there? And then also, how do we leverage our current staff that are experienced with highly capable to what Kathy's point is, a couple hours PD isn't maybe sufficient, but how do we leverage our experienced staff to roll out a really successful neighborhood model? I don't know. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a soapbox. Didn't mean to. I 100% understand the direction we're moving in. I just don't know if we're ready for next school year. That's my perspective.
I would love to make a quick comment. Thank you for all those details. And this is not attempting to answer all of those points, but I wanted to go back to what Wendy said, talking about teachers and knowing the work that Wendy does in her own classroom. I wanted to thank all of the teachers that are doing this in their classrooms, because they have students that are in the highly capable program and are not at a self-contained classroom. They are not self-contained teachers, and they are making differentiation happen in their classroom with limited resources as of right now. So I just wanted to make sure that we're thanking them and appreciating them, because they have contributed to the survey. They have been an overwhelming voice asking for supports and resources geared toward them and all the students we have. So I really wanted to make sure that we thank them, honor them, and appreciate them as well. Thank you.
Director Zavala, you have your hand up.
I think Kathy was for me.
Oh, is there? I thought that was from before.
No, I took it down, and as promised, as you always know, I'm never done. Well, I am done, but first, I keep forgetting to do this. First, I just want to thank Dr. Lark, Ms. Darcy, and Desiree too, for all the work and study that you've put into this. I know that you have done tons of work, and I hope you realize that we are not, the only word that comes to mind, and this is because I spend my day with 3-year-olds, poo-pooing your expertise. That is not at all. There's just a lot of questions that have come to mind, and this goes to the next. So I want to thank you guys. You are, I said this in an email before, you are rock stars, and I recognize that. What I do want to say though is there is a slight, I think, level of panic in a certain part of our community, which is to be understood, because basically what's happened is to this group of people is we're going to remove the way you know the services. And we're going to replace it with this thing that we're calling, let's say, neighborhood clustering. But to them, it's a black hole, right? They don't have anything to compare it to. They don't have any idea what that means to their kids. They just know what their current services are and that they like their current services. And I think that to quell a little bit of the panic and the disappointment, we need a lot more information out there about what will that service look like for your kid, and how can we make certain that the services that you're receiving are really beneficial for your kid. What will it look like? And whenever you create a black hole in somebody's idea of what's going to happen next year for their kid, we all know that we fill it up with everything negative. Like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So I think that's part of the issue, that both parents that know that they're being affected by this and teachers that know that they're being affected by this don't have that. So what does that look like in their brains yet?
And just to clarify, those that are in self-contained classrooms, that would not be changing for them. I just want to make sure that that's.
But some of them I understand that, but some of them do have like siblings or people that are expecting, and so they have a certain expectation of what was going to happen. And
Sure.
now, and I'm sure that you've had this experience, where you thought something was going to happen and then somebody said, oh no, we're not doing it that way, we're doing it this way, but you have no idea what that looks like. And so there's that level of anxiety.
Absolutely.
Director Zavala.
Yes. I just also want to acknowledge, I guess, our community, that we hear you loud and clear, and we can feel there's a lot of emotions going on, right? And we are we're hoping that we're able to kind of answer those questions with all of this conversations, right? But I guess I also just kind of want to point out that I'm hoping that with all of these questions also we're able to take it more, and I know that all of our board directors see it this way, but it's just, I want to kind of just acknowledge it, that we're able to kind of give the same lens to all our programs, the same way that we're giving this lens. I think it's maybe a district-wide, just higher education for all of our students. I just feel that a lot of these feelings and emotions and expectations and I know I keep bringing this up, but it's just our EL students are, our other students who also feel different and they don't belong. At times, these questions are not brought up for them, and these questions are not brought up for our families. And so I just wanted to just bring that up.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm glad you said that. I think that's a really important point. I think one thing, I had a conversation with Dr. Snell yesterday, and I think he reminded me this is the first programmatic change that we're doing under the new equity policy. So I think there is a hyper focus that we're making good choices, student-focused choices, or at least for me, just a sense of wanting to get it right and making sure we're hearing all the voices. But you're right, like we need the same level of attention and focus on all of our programs, because we want high quality services for all 21,500, probably off by a few. But I think that's a really good reminder. For me, I think it's been hard the last few weeks because, and I do agree that services are not being changed for students that are currently in the program. I think it's hard because our board has really prioritized transparency and authenticity and process. to hear so many people being or feeling that they were excluded or unaware of possible changes, or hearing right before a decision is going to be made. And I know that as a board, I think we've prioritized wanting to really be transparent in our decision-making process.
Any final questions? All right. Dr. Snell, did you have anything else in your superintendent report?
No, and just to summarize, what I'm hearing from the board is that you would like us to slow down the process. You've given us a lot of questions and research. I do want to just highlight that in the time that since I think it was January 25th or something, the amount of outreach and research that Dr. Lark and Darcy and the team have done. So I know that it feels like a sense of urgency, and but all along from the beginning, we talked about that this is a staffing time. And so if we're going to make any changes, we have to get feedback from you in the staffing window of time when we start to deploy resources. And so that's why it's coming to you today as a follow-up, is because we're starting that process. You know, as we mentioned at the beginning, the highly capable plan is approved in October. And so like, I don't think that to my knowledge, a board hasn't invested in highly capable discussions 5 months before the approval of the plan, with surveys out to community. The reason there's energy is because there's possible changes. And I don't want to minimize that to anyone, but anytime you start talking about possible changes, then you rally voice and you get more stakeholder feedback. And so I wouldn't say that it's a mistake to, not that you are or anything, but my experience is when you start talking about changes, that's when people come out to share their perspective. And we've definitely heard in the last week or two, and I think in public comment tonight, we will hear one perspective from the self-contained program. But again, we're not hearing necessarily the voices of underserved people. And as much as I appreciate the opportunity to expand all of our programs and to look at it with this lens, I think that there's also the reality of that we are working with limited resources. And so as a board, you will need to prioritize for our staff where you want us to concentrate the energy and resources, because it would be misleading our public if we think that we can just add resources to all the programs that we have out there to make them better. At some point, we will have to make difficult decisions about priorities. And I don't want to, like, we do that with all the respect and support of wanting each student to have an amazing experience. It's just unfortunately some of the parameters that you're faced with as board directors to try to make these decisions. So we will, what I'm hearing, and I'll make sure I'll restate it just so, because we're not taking a vote, like I said, we're just trying to check in on progress, is that you would like us to slow down and further explore, and we can work out some of those details in conversations with our staff, with the board, and follow up. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's what I'm hearing. Or seeing nods. I see head nods.
Sandra, you raised your hand. Is that, oh, just
I was trying to use an emoji to say yes.
okay.
But
Well, we will look forward to, you know, one, you know, as was mentioned, Wendy did provide some more questions, and we did get some initial responses, and not all the directors have had a chance to review those. So those will probably lead to more questions. And so we're happy to kind of continue that dialogue as well as we move forward. So thank you all for the discussion. I think that you have just demonstrated a transparent decision-making process of requesting and asking questions of us and sharing your priorities and your thoughts and experiences with this. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do that tonight.
All right. With that, we are going to continue moving forward with our agenda. Next, we have Employee Excellence Awards, and I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Everidge to present our amazing employees with their awards.
Thank you, Tracy. Well, good evening, directors and Dr. Snell. It's my privilege to be able to recognize our April 2022 Employee Excellence Award recipients. The following employees were selected by a committee of their peers for commitment to the students and staff of Vancouver Public Schools. This month's recipients were among many outstanding nominees who create a caring environment and positive workplace through their exceptional efforts. For more information about each recipient, or if you would like to submit a nomination, please visit the district's website at vansd.org. So the first recipient we are honoring tonight is Erin Annis. She was hired in September 2011. She's a teacher at Skyview High School. Erin is described as hardworking, compassionate, talented, and dedicated to continuous improvement. Throughout the pandemic, she has innovated to engage her students. When a few students needed to quarantine, she quickly found ways for them to participate in classroom activities from home. Said one parent, Miss Annis was not only quick to respond, but also came up with positive and interactive solutions. I heard laughter and positive conversation, and it lifted my spirits. Congratulations, Erin. Next, I'd like to recognize Jeremy Burles, hired July 2017. He's principal at Jim Tangeman Center and Gate. Among his many positive qualities, Jeremy has a reputation for showing up in every sense of the word. One day he can be found helping a student who is upset or mopping the floors. The next, he is working to keep both schools safe during the pandemic. Said one nominator, he has a knack for meeting students and staff where they are at with a humble heart and engages people with compassion and grace, all the while holding the bar high with the expectations, firm expectations for his students and staff. So congratulations to Jeremy. Next, we'd like to recognize Eco Chapel from hired in August 2015. She is a family community resource coordinator at Minnehaha Elementary. Eiko's work helps her students focus on learning. She connects families with resources to obtain food, clothing, and school supplies. She also assists parents and guardians with securing housing, employment, and health services. Her work can help transform families' futures and students' school experiences. In addition, Eiko coordinates events and opportunities for parents and guardians to connect with Minnehaha and further engage in their children's learning. Said one nominator, Eiko is amazing, kind, courageous, thoughtful, and thorough. Congratulations, Eiko. Next are educators from Geyser Middle School. Kayla Hogan, teacher, hired January 2020. Adam Lamucci, behavior analyst, hired August 2019. And Sarah Martin, paraeducator, hired October 2019. This team excels at being flexible and creative to meet the needs of students who require extra support. To help one student return to school, Kayla, Adam, and Sarah work closely with the student's parents to provide a comfortable, safe return to the classroom. The team's combination of careful monitoring, technical knowledge, communication, perseverance helped the student become more self-aware and ultimately successful at school. Said the parent, I can't be more thankful for all this hard work and dedication by these educators. Congratulations to them all. And finally, I'd like to recognize Libby Odrin, hired in February 2016. She is a special programs clerk, visual and performing arts, and advancement via individual determination. No job is too little or too big for Libby. From supporting several different arts programs to organizing tutors for avid students, Libby applies her organizational skills to ensure that the event or program is a success. She is a very conscientious worker, said one of her nominators. She never misses the deadlines. She has good ideas and always has a positive attitude, said another. Libby can always be counted on to work hard on behalf of her colleagues and students across the district. So Board of Directors, Dr. Snell, those are your April Employee Excellence recipients for this month. Congratulations to them all.
Congratulations to everybody. I always love this part of the agenda when we get to honor our amazing employees that we have in our district. We will continue on with our agenda. The next item on the agenda is audience participation. This is when we have citizen comments and public comments. Citizen comments is the time in our meeting where the board and administrative staff like to hear comments from our public. Because most matters require fact-finding and review, the board is not able to respond to public comments at this time. Additionally, the state's Open Public Meetings Act restricts deliberation on topics that have not been placed on the publicly noticed agenda in advance. If follow-up action is necessary, the board will ask the superintendent to work with staff to consider the information and respond accordingly. Speakers are expected to be respectful. Personnel complaints and personal attacks are not permitted. We do ask that personnel complaints be submitted in writing. Speakers will be promoted to panelists as I call their name. If you could please state your name and affiliation with the district, you will then have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you hear a chime or there is kind of a visual timer that you will see on the screen, when that ends, if you could conclude your remarks. If you do have materials or additional comments you would like for us to review, you can submit those to vpsboard.directors@vansd.org, and that information is shared with the superintendent and board. We appreciate, listen, and care about the broad range of perspectives in our community, and thank you for your comments. I will also ask that if you have signed up for public comment, if you could please make sure that your screen name reflects your name and the name that you signed up with for public comment. That makes it a lot easier for us to find you and promote you to panelists. There are times when we aren't sure if you just have a first name or if you're listed as like a Zoom user or things like that. We don't necessarily know who that is to be able to promote you. So if you could just check that if you are signed up. First on the list, we have Jonah Barnes. So Jonah, you're going to get promoted to panelist.
Promoted.
And for those of you that are giving public comment, you will need to unmute yourself, and you can turn on your camera if you would like, or you can leave it off.
How's my hair? How's my hair?
It looks great. Jonah, you have 3 minutes. If you could just state your name and affiliation with the district, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, hello, I'm Jonah Barnes. I have too many children, and many of them are in Vancouver Public Schools. I also volunteer at several schools. I've coached chess club, and I volunteer with the robotics program, and I feed a lot of your students. They say they're related to me and they live with me. I also am an alumni. I was born and raised in Vancouver. So thank you so much for taking my comment. All right, so thank goodness we have a school board. I wanted to say that Wendy Smith is totally right. As a parent of high-cap kids, I have no confidence in a clustering model. And I'll tell you why. When my father was a little boy, he was identified as being high-cap. The principal of his school drove to his house, as before cell phones and emails, and met with his mother and his grandmother to tell them that your son needs to be in this program. When I was a kid, I was identified as high-cap as well. My parents did not put me in the program. They actually shredded the letter that gave me acceptance to the program and didn't even tell me that I was accepted, because they had tried clustering with my older siblings and were so appalled that they would not let me do it. If my child had a special need, like a wheelchair ramp to get to their class, we'd move heaven and earth to get that kid the basic education that they deserve. And the legislature has declared correctly that access to high-cap engagement and instruction is basic education. Mrs. Ortega Zavala, you're absolutely right. If ELL services were watered down like this proposal, it would be an outrage. It'd be a historic injustice. Kathy Decker, you are dead right. Clustering hurts social belonging and cohesion. It hurts emotional safety. We know from our kids being in gen ed and in high cap, when they're in the wrong place, they don't learn, the teacher struggles, the other kids struggle, everyone loses. Director Snell, you're absolutely right. With staffing realities, we wish every class could be a high cap hybrid cluster, but that's just never going to happen. And like Mrs. Sproul said, we need more time on this. Sending out a survey after a decision has been drafted up is not community engagement. A couple clicks on a website doth not engagement make. We received the survey and thought, yeah, great, rate it 1 to 10. We had no idea somebody was seriously considering scuttling the self-contained classes. We're not upset because changes are being made, Director Snell. We're upset because of the opacity. Changes were being made without telling anyone. Parents were their rugs were being pulled out from under our feet. None of the responses you shared from that survey, no one said, gee, we should get rid of the self-contained program. We should get rid of the self-contained classes. Nobody breathed a word of that. Somehow, with waning enrollment, we think the solution is scuttling the high cap classes? How does this logic follow? My third grader in a high cap class could understand that that's illogical. Please reject this proposal. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda for public comment, we have Beth Hornback.
Promoting.
Hey, Beth, when you are ready. Oh, we cannot hear you. It looks like you are starting to talk, but I can't hear you. I'm going to make sure your audio is connected. No. For your speaker. There.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm really sorry about that.
Sometimes those earphones don't, for some reason, connect. So yes, you will have 3 minutes if you could state your name and affiliation with the district.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. My name is Beth Hornback. I am speaking. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm speaking tonight on behalf of a group of concerned parents and community members. I am the parent of a student receiving highly capable services in Mrs. Wong's classroom at Eisenhower Elementary. While tonight I speak as a parent, I am also proud. It's repeating back to me when I'm speaking. I'm hearing myself.
We're not hearing that. Your audio, it kind of goes back and forth, but we're not hearing you echo.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. While tonight I speak as a parent, I am also proud to serve on the PTA Council Board, the Eisenhower PTA Board, and as a member of the Superintendent Transition Team. It was by coincidence that parents became aware of the possibility that the self-contained classroom model for the highly capable program would be phased out over the next 2 years. Parents and teachers were not informed ahead of time that this was even being considered. The board ran on a campaign of transparency and open communication, and we request the same transparency for important program changes that affect our gifted students. In the board study session on January 25th, the highly capable program was discussed, but a proposal to eliminate the self-contained classroom model was not. In March, a survey went out to all families of students receiving highly capable services, but it did not mention that the results of the survey would be used to justify changes in the program. If it had, the board would have heard from parents and teachers much sooner. We had very limited time to organize our advocacy, and as you can see from the number of people who are commenting today, we are exceptionally passionate in our advocacy. We understand that highly capable services are being evaluated to increase participation and make the offerings more equitable. We welcome this approach and support it fully. However, we do not agree that eliminating the self-contained classroom model should be part of that solution. Currently, the self-contained classroom model is not promoted beyond a general letter sent to identified students, whereas VSAA and ITech have open houses each year and are promoted in person at schools. If more families knew about what is available for their children and what the experience of a self-contained classroom model truly is, participation could be increased dramatically. Additionally, barriers such as the lack of transportation could be removed, leading to additional enrollment. VSAA and ITech students are provided transportation, whereas students attending the self-contained classrooms are not. It is our understanding that incoming students to VITA will also be offered transportation. We urge the board to recommend that the decision to phase out the self-contained classroom model be delayed until all stakeholders are given the opportunity to provide their input. We respectfully request that a work group of all stakeholders be created to evaluate the current offerings for highly capable students. This group can then make an informed recommendation to the board that considers the unique needs of gifted students and offers a robust and varied program that is equitable and balanced. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. A signed statement from the group will be sent via email today. And just as an aside, I want to thank the board for all of their comments and concerns and questions. It was as if you were reading my mind. And we moved from Lakeshore Elementary to Eisenhower this past year for our daughter, and we believe that our son will be identified as highly capable this year. And to think that he won't be able to experience Mrs. Wong's incredible third grade experience is crushing, and we hope that he will get that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Next on the list, we have Allison Sundwall.
Voting.
Okay, can you hear us okay?
Yes, we can hear you. So if you could just state your name and affiliation with the district, then you'll have 3 minutes.
Hey, hi, I'm Allison Sundwall. I'm a paraeducator at Eisenhower Elementary. I have 2 students in the district, and I'm also the president of the Eisenhower PTA. And I'm one of those passionate parents that has been sharing all of my concerns via email with the school board and everyone in the district. And thank you so much for hearing that advocacy. I can't tell you how much that means to know that our school board has been listening. Tonight, I'd like to use my time to amplify my children's voices. So they've each prepared a statement that they would like to share.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Sundwall in 5th grade. I know this change wouldn't affect me, but I've had experiences that I hope other students won't have to go through. When I was in a regular 2nd grade class at Eisenhower, we learned about 3D shapes, which I had already learned in kindergarten. It was really hard for me to focus because I wasn't learning anything new. I don't want other HiCap students have to sit in a class where they feel bored and that they aren't getting challenged. Being in a HiCap class has made a big difference for me. I hope future students get this opportunity too. Thank you for your time.
And then I'm going to be reading a statement that my son has prepared, but was a little too shy to read himself. Okay, this says, hi, I'm Ian Sundwall in the Sundwall family. I'm a 2nd grade HiCap student at Eisenhower, and being a HiCap student, I'm really excited about 3rd grade, and Mrs. Wong's class. I've been looking forward to being in her class for a long time, but if the program changes, I won't have a chance to go to Mrs. Wong's class. I was heartbroken when I heard I might not get that chance. I want to be in the HiCap class because other classes may not have all the work that I need. So I speak for kids like me that I think we should still have our HiCap classes. In my regular classes, sometimes they teach me stuff I already know. I want a challenge. My teacher says challenges are how your brain grows. If I'm not getting challenges, then how is my brain going to grow? I hope you listen to all the students. I really, really want to be in a 3rd grade class with other kids like me. Thank you for your time. Okay, so thank you so much for listening to our families. I hope that you will continue to do so. We need an equitable plan that has been formulated with all voices being heard that these decisions are going to affect. And it doesn't need to be an either or situations. People deserve options, families deserve options. Education is not one size fits all. So thank you very, very much for the chance to speak. And thank you so much for hearing what we've had to say.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Next on the list, we have Jamie Letnick. I do not see.
Look, they are present.
Okay, Jamie, if you are there, but maybe your screen name does not show your name, if you could just change your screen name to make sure we can find you. I'm going to keep moving on and we'll come back to people that maybe we don't see on the list. Next on the list is Amber P. There's no full last name.
Not seeing them either.
I do not see an Amber on the list either. We will just keep it going. Next is Nigel Noriega.
Promoting now.
All right,
Can anyone hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
So if you could say your name and affiliation with the district, we'll give you 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Nigel Noriega. I'm a parent of a student at Eisenhower Elementary in the high cap program. My comments are quite softened now, having had a chance to listen to the board members. And I appreciate all the considerations for neighborhood versus self-contained and versus the other options you discussed. It does seem to me like communication options could alleviate some of the sourcing and distribution problems you identified. I'm also echoing the statements of the prior speakers that we're requesting much more inclusion of teachers, stakeholders, parents, and students in the decision-making process. I'm going to abbreviate my comments and maybe relate the story of my daughter to encompass a couple of points. So my daughter, we made inquiries to school officials when our daughter was identified as a high cap candidate. And the concept of high cap was dismissed completely as, in quote, just a formality by the principal of her prior school. A year later, she was struggling so badly that she was beginning to refuse to attend class, and she'd go out of her way to make bad choices at every opportunity, and was pretty proud of it. We were willing to try anything at that time, and eventually switched schools to Eisenhower High Cap. The very first day of attendance, when we asked her how was school, it's the first time she ever said, good, school was good. And within a year, she was performing way above her grade level in reading and math. Now, her selection of behavioral and interactive choices improved drastically, and the peers and the teaching environment appropriate to her level saved her from really bad outcomes at an early age. And we've become so dependent on this program that we're actually counting on it for our second daughter, who, already in preschool is showing a lot of signs of needing educational needs that are far outside of her cohort. I understand the discussion around providing this service in every school, and I appreciate the theory, and I do wish that could happen. But right now, I think the implementation and the reality are so far away from that reducing or eliminating what's left of the self-contained classroom could be really destructive and leave no options for students who really need it. So I'll close my comments there, and thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Next on our list, we have Mindy Chumbley.
Promoted.
All right, Mindy, oh, there you are.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can. You have, if you could state your name and affiliation with the district, you'll have 3 minutes.
That open dialogue and wish it had been what had happened to point. I have 2 daughters. One's teen, she was identified as high cap in 5th grade. She's currently at VSAA. My second daughter is 9 and she is in Mrs. Fong's high cap class. The reason that I feel like my testimony may have merit is because we chose with our older daughter when she was identified to keep her at the local school for many of the reasons that Superintendent Snell mentioned. We didn't want to switch schools, and we were promised that she would receive differentiated help, that she would be pulled out, or she would be given opportunities that warranted, her her identification, and it didn't happen. In fact, quite the opposite. She was frustrated. She was not given extra hard work. Occasionally, she was asked to help another student, but that mentorship, while valuable, is not the same as a challenge to the level that she needed. And so when our younger daughter was identified, we didn't believe that the local school was going to be able to match her needs. And it had nothing to do with the quality of teachers. I loved the teachers at the local school. It had the fact that there's too many needs in one classroom to go from students who are catching up, especially after the pandemic, all the way through the needs of a high cap student. And so we chose a different choice for our second child, and her experience was drastically the exact opposite. She loves Mrs. Wong's class. She loves being around peers who understand and challenge her. She loves the pace of the learning. When she was in a regular gen ed class the last couple of years, she was so frustrated with the pace that she actually regressed and didn't learn because she just gave up. And so when she was actually challenged at an appropriate level, her level of growth has just exploded. And it has nothing to do, again, with the quality of the local school, but it has to do with that peer group where they're challenging each other. It has to do with the ability of the teacher to focus on giving challenge instead of having way too far across the board. And so lastly, I would just really like to encourage us, as the other speakers have, that an open work group be convened to take a look at this and find ways to address the equity concerns. Absolutely, we want every student in the district who could qualify for high cap to be able to receive services that mean something, that aren't just a pandering or oh yeah, we'll give coaching so that teachers can differentiate. We ask too much of our teachers in gen ed classes, and adding one more layer, what that means is that those high cap kids will be left behind again.
All right, thank you, Mindy. Next, oh, let me make sure she was done. Is that it? Okay. Next on the list, we have Adelaide Waite.
Promoting.
All right. Hi, Adelaide. You could say your name and affiliation with the district. You have 3 minutes.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Adelaide Waite. I am currently a 10th grade student enrolled in the Vancouver School of Arts and Academics. I just wanted to speak for the board today because I think that my experiences as both a twice exceptional student and a former student of the self-contained forgetting the terms, high cap student can provide some insight. So my goal today is to just provide insight and maybe express a few opinions as well. So I had 2 very different experiences between my general ed classes, my kindergarten through 2nd grade year, and my high cap experience 3rd through 5th grade year. In kindergarten through 2nd grade, I, like other people have said, hated school, not because I didn't like learning, but because my teachers didn't know how to deal with me being a twice exceptional student and being highly capable. I was bored out of my mind, and because of that, I often acted out, which wasn't appropriate, but what are you going to do to kindergartners? After I was identified and placed in a highly capable program, the program started challenging me. I made lots of friends, and some of those friendships are still with me today. I think that it's important to place students who are highly gifted in these self-contained models because it helps them learn, it helps them grow, and it helps them get the resources that they need. I heard the board wanting to know a little bit about how high cap students go on in high school. So I'll just share my experience. I am currently enrolled in all of the AP classes that I can. I plan to take about 5 AP classes next year, with and some additional college courses. And I know many of my friends that I am still connected with from the high cap program are doing similar things. I also, the format of this meeting reminds me of things that I have participated in my school with student vision meetings. where we also talk about equity and inclusion, which I know are big deals. And so I just want to say I appreciate the board and everything that they are doing for that. And if there is some sort of work group, I encourage you to include former HiCap students in that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adelaide. Next on the list, we have Melissa Beatty.
We've got Mark and Melissa together.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like they're signed up one after each other, so we'll keep them promoted as a panelist for both. Yeah. All right. There we go.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Hello, yes, we can. So
Great.
Melissa, it looks like you are up first. If you want to state your name, affiliation with the district, you will have 3 minutes. And then when you're done, Mark is signed up next, so you can just have him do the same thing.
Sure. I want to thank the board for this opportunity. I had recently, just today, watched the January study session, and I understand that VPS wants to double the enrollment in the highly capable program. My most salient learning from watching that study session came from the board's direct questions, because a lot of the proposed solutions from VPS staff sounded positive, even though they didn't actually describe anything concrete. Clustering and differentiated instructions were the biggest vocabulary offenders, in my opinion. Regarding those two, differentiation and clustering, I actually asked about those specific ideas with our daughter's option to stay in a highly coveted Spanish immersion classroom with differentiated instruction instead of going into self-contained. At the time, her then current principal discouraged us from joining the highly capable program, and she not only did that, she could not speak to any of these issues that were happening theoretically only 5 months later. Curriculum differentiation, she could not speak to teaching plans and how differentiation would actually occur. She could not speak to student clusters and how it would be administered in the classroom or across classrooms. She could not speak to teacher preparation to teach at a higher level in a classroom that we've already heard is stretched thin. In addition, VPS has presented zero data on why parents do not choose the self-contained model. This oversight of basic data and analysis while moving solutions forward without that information is literally the definition of using correlation and not causation to propose solutions, and does not stand up to logic. Further, this distraction means time is being taken away from actually addressing equity barriers themselves, such as transportation, which is probably the biggest issue, and including reimbursements are never told to parents ahead of time. Parent information nights like Spanish immersion or magnet school nights, so parents can take this time instead of having to take their own time and ability to do their own research when they don't have the ability to do so. Too quick of a turnaround also comes up. I had to check that highly capable didn't mean special education. It struck me kind of odd. The nomenclature of that and the self-contained is also kind of difficult. High cap classrooms in middle school need to appear. So there is a path so that friendships that are made, these kind of social learning that can happen has a path to go through instead of dropping in the middle school years. And really that same problem it needs to start in 2nd grade. 3rd grade is too late. Student relationships, school relationships are developed. Parents have to refigure transportation plans. And then their kids are really hesitant to go because they don't know what they're going to find out. And there's no way to talk to any other kids or any other parents or even teachers in this program. You have to do all of it yourself. That's an equity barrier. And those things are not being addressed. In this house, we're lucky enough that we can overcome all of these issues because we have the time and ability to evaluate. But it's readily apparent to me that most parents don't have that ability. No matter how much they want to send their kid to the best education they can, they're not going to be able to. So I want to just say VPS really should be looking to expand this program by addressing these barriers directly, not shutting down highly capable classrooms.
Your time is up.
Okay.
Mark, you will, if you could state your name and affiliation with the district, you will also have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Mark Beatty, Melissa's husband. We have a daughter in the high cap classroom over at Eisenhower. And I'd just like to say, Jonah Barnes, your hair looks great and I envy you. So I'm going to start by this. The thing that everybody has emphasized so far, I think, is that the communications for the high cap program are just abysmal. They're an absolute failure. They don't meet the district's policy statements about bringing in stakeholders and getting input before a plan is put together and making sure it meets everybody's needs. Nobody understands what's going on. Things are being announced and rumors are flying. It's a failure of communication. That's really, there's no excuse for it. We've been in the high cap program for 3 years, and I have to say, nobody's ever asked us our opinion or our experience or anything else. So whomever the district is talking to, it ain't us. And that's kind of frustrating that these decisions are being made. I don't even know anybody personally who has been asked what their experience is or anything else. And the surveys that are put out are useless. They're mostly push surveys that are trying to get affirmation on a decision that's already been made and not really explain what's going into this decision, as many of the speakers have already noted. It seems like there's 3 things that there's a lot of concern about equity, and we all share that concern. One of the fundamental problems with this, or 3 of the fundamental problems with this, are the lack of communications and information, the problems with transportation, and I think related to the lack of communication are the continuity risks that you have to take. We were in the Spanish immersion program. When we asked about the high cap program, when we found out about it, the answer was, we don't know, you'll go over in 2nd grade. We don't know if it's going to exist in 3rd grade or 4th grade or 5th grade. So we have to take her out of a program and put her in another program and risk not being able to go back to the other program if everything falls apart, if the high cap classroom goes away. As far as, there's just a lot to address, but I'll say that one of the things that Dr. Snell mentioned was that, resources are limited and you can't make every program better or the greatest, but that applies to clustering as well. You can't make every gen ed classroom into a high cap classroom. It just doesn't work. If you have high cap classroom, if you have handfuls of high cap students distributed in gen ed classrooms everywhere, there is no high cap program. The talk about differentiated learning and things within those classrooms, it doesn't exist. You cannot expect a teacher to teach 2 different classes at the same time within the same period. Okay, so I guess my time is up. I just think this is a terrible idea, and this needs a lot more data and input from the people who actually have experience with it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Next on the list, we have Charlotte Barnes. I don't see a Charlotte Barnes, but I do see Charlotte Clark. Oh, thank you, Charlotte. You just updated your screen name. Yes, Charlotte Barnes is there. Let's promote her account. Thank you for changing your screen name to help me out. I appreciate that. I don't want to promote the wrong person. Perfect.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. It's slightly echoey, just as an FYI. I see you might,
Okay.
if you have a different account also pulled up, like if you're watching on 2 different devices, you might have to turn off the other account because you might be getting feedback.
Yeah, my phone, the camera works, and that's Charlotte Clark. And then the laptop I just pulled up is Charlotte Barnes, and the camera doesn't work. So if you want me to be Charlotte,
If we know you're the same person, we can promote the other account. I
That
just
would be
don't want to
lovely.
promote somebody that might not be you. So
No, I was Charlotte Clark and now I'm Charlotte Barnes. I got married.
would you prefer to update the or to for us to promote the other account? Or, I mean, we can hear you fine if you'd like to
Okay.
to give your comments.
I think you just made me a panelist on my phone with the camera. Oh, now I see.
Charlotte, we're getting feedback, and so we're gonna.
Hey, I think it's gonna work now. I think I turned off the Charlotte, the other one. Okay, is this working now?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your patience. I'm sorry for the technology.
It's okay.
So I'm.
Go ahead. 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'm Charlotte Barnes. Jonah Barnes is my husband with the great hair. And we have 6 children. Our oldest 3 sons have been and are in the highly capable program at Eisenhower. In fact, that is what helped us decide to move from Camas to Vancouver, was specifically for this program. We heard about it not through any information night, not through websites or anything, but through parents at church. And that's how we heard about it. And that's how we knew we wanted to move to Vancouver, was for this program at Eisenhower. We also have 3 daughters. One's in 1st grade, one's at kindergarten at Eisenhower, one's in preschool. And we are hoping that they can have the same amazing experience that our boys have had. Before we started Eisenhower, we were at our local school receiving differentiated services, which amounted to just a few extra worksheets and mostly more iPad game times. So I appreciate the teachers tried, and we had meetings, conferences, and they told me what they wanted to do, but it was just really hard to make happen when a gen ed teacher has children below grade level, at grade level, and above grade level all in one classroom. It's just so much to ask. So when we were accepted into the Eisenhower program, it was amazing. We were so grateful. Kathy Decker asked about future, or somebody asked about, they wanted some future data. Well, our son Samuel is in 6th grade right now in iTech, and he is on a robotics team that consists of 3 boys who went through the HiCap program at Eisenhower. Most teams there are 4 or 5 kids, but these 3 boys are the first 6th grade team ever to make it in the VEX Robotics World Championships. They did an incredible job with their robot, and they, and in part because of the incredible education and stimulation and engagement and challenge they received through the self-contained program at Eisenhower. So the competition is next month in Dallas. They are headed there for this incredible victory for the whole district. I love what Kyle Sprouse said about we need more time. There's more digging we need to do, and we need to look at creative solutions across the state. I absolutely agree. Thank you so much for feeling that way. And I love what Kathy Decker said about the first thing we need to do is, how do we tell parents about this? When we lived in Camas and had applied to this program, once we had our house offer was accepted, the letter that we received that said that Samuel was accepted into Roosevelt, I had just had a newborn baby. I wasn't checking my mail. It was down the street. That was a really long way for me to walk. By the time I saw the letter that he had been accepted to Roosevelt, the deadline had passed. We'd missed our opportunity. And there was, as we've been saying, there was no other way to hear about it, no other way to learn about it. So that one piece of paper with one box to check, I missed the opportunity. And so I would love to personally volunteer to be a cheerleader, a promoter, for free, to go around to different elementary schools, to people's houses, whatever it takes to get them to learn about this incredible self-contained HiCap program, and how much children who are identified as HiCap will grow and learn, and their whole life will be blessed because of this. Is that time? So please reject the proposal for the cluster program and eliminating the self-contained program. It is incredible. Thank you. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Charlotte. Next on the list, we have Brooke Dietz.
Ramon?
All right, Brooke, it looks like you are on the panel. There you go.
All right, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you.
See me.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, 3 minutes. Name.
All right, my name is Brooke Dietz, and I'm a parent of 2 highly capable children. One of which is the 6th grader at iTech that's going to World's Robotics. So we know that that says a lot for the program that these kids have received for the last couple of years in the self-contained classroom. First off, I wanted to say thank you for your time for this opportunity to speak. And I appreciate the feedback of wanting more time. I echo that. I feel we need more open communication about the program, about the options to find a solution for if the self-contained option goes away. Just the lack of transparency was very shocking. And I know there's a lot of people depending on this program. Past tense, as in my son who's through it, but also my daughter who's in 2nd grade, and she's been looking forward to the opportunity to go for a while. She tested in as a kindergartner, and so far she'll be heartbroken if she can't be a part of it. She is not being challenged enough in her regular classroom, even though she's identified as high cap. I'm one of those those parents that can say that that's happened with my student. She just needs more. She wants more. My son was able to have that, and I want that for my daughter as well. So I just like to say, let's delay the decision to cancel the self-contained classrooms. I think there's a better opportunity, and if you give us stakeholders some input and the option to do that, we can find one. As far as my son goes, it made a world of difference. He was in it since 2nd grade. And it made a world of difference for him and for our family. He wasn't challenged. He was he could get in trouble. He's twice exceptional, but once he was in it, he thrived. Something clicked. He was able to make friends, something he'd never had done before because he struggled socially. And I think the program, it not only challenges kids academically and meets their needs that way, but also from a social and an emotional level. These teachers are highly trained to recognize that in these kids, and they know how to teach them the curriculum, but also how to teach them and how to reach them and how to lift up these kids and bring out the best in them. And I think that's what this program will do. I mean, these kids are our future. They're our scientists, our future engineers, our astronauts, our leaders that we need. And if we don't give them the opportunity to live up to their full potential, then in the end, we're hurting ourselves, not just our kids now, but our generations for the future. So please, like I said, let's reevaluate. More heads are better than one. And as I see from the inundation of all these parents and community members, we've got the heads, so let's put them together. And I will echo Charlotte's fact, and I will help spread the word because it's that important to us and to my family. So yes, it was a great program for my son, and we are looking forward to it for my daughter. And we would just like some more time to delay and choose some better options. Thank you for the chance to speak.
Thank you, Brooke. Next on the list, we have Maxon Tan.
Promoting.
And it looks like Maxon and daughter will be, Maxon's daughter is helping with the comments.
So apparently we're not Maxon, we are Maxon's kids. And let me start first. So I'm in 5th grade right now. I'm in the high cap class at Eisenhower. And when I was in 1st grade, a year before I started high cap, it was a total snooze fest. And no offense to my teacher at the time, but no matter what she tried to do, it was, she tried to make it a little harder, but sometimes it just wouldn't stimulate me. And if you take away high cap, then you take away basically geniuses, poets, scientists. And as you remove high cap, you remove a challenge that gifted kids deserve. People start out with plenty of capacity in their brain and they learn as they go. Sometimes people learn more than others. Obviously, those are gifted students. In a 2008 survey, 7 out of 10 US teachers said that their brightest students weren't challenged enough in a regular classroom. Why can't the challenge be given to those kids? So I repeat this, ma'am. I highly urge you, please consider keeping this opportunity for the younger generations. And since I have a minute left, I will yield the rest of my time to my sister who has something to say.
Hi, my name is Leanne and I'm currently in High Cap 3rd grade. I would like to add my opinion in this. High Cap helps me challenge my mind. If I didn't have High Cap classes offered to me, classes would be a snooze fest. Gifted children need extra challenges and opportunities in order to stay engaged in school. Teachers and other students might struggle if gifted students attended regular classes. Meanwhile, other students will be forced to compete against gifted kids in regular classes. Therefore, we should keep High Cap. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you to Maxon and children. Next on the list, we have just Jay Gerard.
Promoting.
All right.
Hello.
Hi, if you could state your name and affiliation with the district, you'll then have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jay Gerard. I am the parent of a son who's been in the highly capable program since 2nd grade. He's currently in 4th grade, and he's excelled because of his participation in the highly capable program. He was identified as gifted in kindergarten and 1st grade as well, where he was given opportunities to differentiate his learning. He struggled with that model. He had some behavioral issues. He was not challenged. He did not view the differentiated model as, he thought of it as a punishment. He thought that he was being told to work harder because there was something wrong. He didn't understand. He didn't have the abilities at that young age to understand why he was getting different work from his friends. As another parent here mentioned, he was often asked to mentor others, which was just not an appropriate substitute for harder work. Since his inclusion in highly capable in 2nd grade, we've seen his attitudes about schooling change completely. He still struggles, but he's given that opportunity to learn as a class. He can struggle along with his peers. He doesn't feel the sense of being different. He understands that he's being challenged and that he's given this opportunity, and he's excelled because of that. I appreciate the comments from other parents and school boards because I do think more thought is needed. I understand that it is a complex issue, that there are many factors at play that perhaps myself as a parent am not aware of. I appreciate being made aware of those. And I hope that there are options that can still include a model with the terms escaping me, with the class as a whole. Perhaps some schools can have clusters, but I think to get rid of the opportunity to have a full class of highly capable students is a misstep. If parents need help with transportation, that can perhaps be addressed. If more enrollment is a goal, then perhaps adding other highly capable programs at schools on opposite ends of the district so that transportation is less of a factor for folks that need that same help. I think that there are some creative solutions. As others have said, I don't think it needs to be one way or the other. Perhaps an option of many different models for different schools can work, but getting rid of the exclusive class of highly capable students is not an answer. It would not have succeeded for my son, and my concern are for his siblings who will also need attendance in programs like this. They will likely experience that same frustration that he experienced in 1st grade and kindergarten if they're not awarded the same opportunity. Thank you for the time to speak. Please consider changing this policy. Do not get rid of this exclusive classroom model. It is a great boon, and if anything, I say duplicate it, put it in more schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Next on the list, we have Tara Rakis. And it looks like after that, we have Harlan Rakis. It looks like they're on this, possibly the same account.
Promoting.
Hi there, this is Tara. I'm Harlan's mother, and I'm actually going to allow Harlan to speak for us and her family.
Okay, do you, I know you both individually signed up, so only Harlan is going to speak?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right, Harlan, you can introduce yourself, and I assume you are a student, and you'll have we no longer do the yielding of time, so is Harlan prepared for 3 minutes or? Okay, all right, so Harlan, you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Harlan and I am a 3rd grader at Eisenhower. I'm speaking because I want highly capable classrooms to continue. Highly capable classrooms are amazing and I will show you why. In my classrooms that weren't high cap, I felt like my teachers didn't have time for me. They didn't challenge me even though I was ready to move on. I felt like they kept doing the same thing over and over again. They didn't do many projects, and as a class, we are not connected together. The teachers in the general ed classroom do a good job, but the work is too easy. I don't feel like I learn anything. I feel like I can do anything in the highly capable classroom. In the general ed classrooms that I've been in, I feel like something is holding me back. In the highly capable program, I am motivated to try my best. I feel like Mrs. Wong has time for me. I'm challenged to the core. We get through a lot of fun projects and she teaches me so much more than in a general ed classroom. For example, I am learning 5th grade math and reading at a 6th grade level. Mrs. Wong does everything to protect us and keep us safe. She frames our individual strengths and helps us work on what we need to improve on. She cares about me and our whole classroom. I feel like we are connected like as a scholar family. Being with the other students that are at the same level as me motivates me to try harder. My wish is for you to not take away the highly capable classroom because my brother and I might need the highly capable program. I want him to have the same opportunities that I've had. Many other kids might also need the highly capable program too. It will make me very sad to see the students also miss out on these opportunities. Please make the right decision and keep the highly capable classrooms that many other kids after us will need. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Harlan. All right. Next on the list, we have Erin Olson.
It was just there a moment ago. One sec. Over there.
All right, Erin, it looks like you have been promoted. You can unmute yourself. Oops. State your name and affiliation with the district, and you will have 3 minutes. Oh, there you go. Getting a lot of static. And we cannot really hear you. We can hear a lot of static. Loudly.
There's no noise on my end.
There you go. Now we
maybe I need to get closer to the mic.
Yeah, that might be it.
So my name's Erin Olson. I am the parent of a 5th grade highly capable student at Eisenhower. I'm going to read my statement because I'm a terrible public speaker. Entering kindergarten, my son could read, write, and do basic math. His teacher at Chinook seemed to have great things for the kids who came in without those skills, but had no idea how to handle him. I went back to the notes that I took during our fall teacher conference, and some of the first things that she said to us were that our son needed to understand that the other's comprehension was not necessarily on the same level of his, and that his poor behavior, which we knew was primarily driven by boredom, negatively affected the class as a whole. The entire year went on as that meeting started, and she frequently came to us looking for guidance because she couldn't manage him in the classroom. In first grade, he had a more experienced teacher who recognized he wasn't being challenged, but her best efforts were not enough to keep him engaged, so he was again a constant source of disruption. She offered him more challenging work, but he could not move on to it until he completed all the same work that his classmates were assigned first. His response was often outright refusal to complete those basic assignments because he resented having to do more work than everyone else just to learn. Of everyone involved, his first grade teacher was the strongest advocate for him to move to a self-contained high-cap class the following year because she knew firsthand that the local school was not equipped to meet his needs. By the end of first grade, testing showed he was consistently far above grade level. Reading. To put that into context, while his classmates were reading books like Hop on Pop and Where the Wild Things Are, he devoured the entire Harry Potter series in 6 weeks. And moving to high cap was like flipping a switch for him. His first high cap teacher explained that his job was to meet each student at their grade level, or at their level, whatever it was, and tailor their instruction to move up at least one grade level from that point. And in our fall conference, he told us that our son was learning about the productive struggle because it was a completely new experience for him to be challenged in class. We are confident that leaving our son at his neighborhood school would have been catastrophic for his academic future. But in full-time high cap, we have a kid who has been consistently challenged, is excited to learn, and engages with his peers. And I'm really heartened by the board comments that I heard tonight. But I just want to say, if there's any chance that this program would move forward in the fall, I can't see how neighborhood schools would be ready to launch cluster classes in 4 months. I just don't see that you have the resources to implement what would need to happen at those schools to provide good education for the high cap students. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Next on the list, we have Timothy Kelly.
Good morning.
All right, Timothy, it looks like you are connected. And yeah, there you go. There you go. Unmute yourself. If you could say your name and affiliation with the district, you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Timothy Kelly, and I am both a first grade teacher for VPS and a parent of 2 students, one a third grader in the highly capable class at Eisenhower, and the other a kindergartner who aspires to follow in her sister's footsteps. Speaking as a teacher who has 24 first graders this year, I can attest to how challenging it is to attempt to meet the needs of students who range from still learning their letter sounds to reading 4th grade texts with ease. I do my best to meet every day to meet the needs of all of my students, and at the end of the day, I'm aware that I have fallen short for at least some of my learners. I want you to know that I very much value the diversity of students that I have the privilege to teach, and that I recognize each one has strengths that can benefit the others. Students who are challenged by traditional academics may be the ones who are models in the arts or in social graces. Yet, I am still charged, and rightly so, in helping them to achieve academic standards in a way that can require a disproportionate amount of my time. The self-contained high cap class provides those students who are self-motivated and who excel in these academic areas to be among their intellectual peers and to learn at a rate more appropriate for them. I have also had the chance to have my class be reading buddies with the 4th grade high cap class during my time at Eisenhower. I've watched these accelerated learners be patient with and mentor my first graders, complete projects with them, and create unlikely friendships. The work our high cap teachers do spreads far beyond the walls of their classrooms, infecting the school with a more positive culture. I have watched them help transform students who struggled in first grade because they felt different due to their unique ways of thinking and processing. These students are now role models to those around them. As a parent, I have watched my high cap 3rd grader grow in confidence and willingly take on challenges that in second grade drove her to tears. The subject that frustrated her the most in first and second grade has now become her favorite, and one she is learning fifth grade standards in. I've had the unique opportunity to see her do project-based learning that her class has shared with the school, including my first grade students, in a way that inspires and motivates them to achieve more. I hope for similar options for my youngest daughter, if she chooses the path that her sister was able to. I urge the board and the district to include stakeholders, including parents, teachers, and community members, to be a part of deciding the future of our HiCap program, in the hope that children like my youngest daughter will have opportunities to grow in ways that her sister has in just the short time that she's been in the program. Thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you, Timothy. Next on the list, we have Vida Hornback.
Promoting.
All right, Vida, it looks like you are, oh, there's your camera. Hi, Vida. When you are ready, if you could just tell us your name and I assume you are a student, and then you will have 3 minutes. Oh, and Vida, we cannot hear you. I think earlier when your mom did, I think maybe the headphones are not maybe connecting to the microphone. There we go. Can you say that again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There
Hi, my name is Vida Hornback, and I go to Eisenhower Elementary in Mrs. Wong's class. I am a scholar. I know that because Mrs. Wong tells me that every day. I want other kids to be called scholars too, and I do not want the HiCap program to be reduced. Ever since I changed to Eisenhower, Mrs. Wong has always pushed me and helped me the moment I got stuck on a problem instead of waiting it out until the next day. I think that if I never changed to HiCap, my life would have been incomplete. In my class, everyone tries to go over their limits. At my old school, everyone did what the teacher told them to do and didn't push themselves to get better. I don't understand why you would rip apart a learning source that's important to teachers and kids like myself. It's just wrong to take away something so special and so valuable to people all over the school district. I hope you make the right decision and choose to keep the HiCap program at Eisenhower for future students. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Vida. Next on the list, we have Jeremy Baker.
Promoting.
All right. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello.
You can state your name and affiliation with the district, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Jeremy Baker. I have a student at VPS. Actually, I have 2 students. One was in the HiCap. It was the challenge program when he was in. He's a senior this year. And so I have enjoyed listening to all the comments. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to the board and talk to the school. When my son was in 4th grade, he was gifted, right? And so we were doing a curriculum night with his teacher, Mrs. Jameson, which was a wonderful teacher. And we were talking about the process on if you have a kid that's falling behind. She had an adequate process to bring them up to standard, but she didn't have a really good answer for what if a kid is excelling and what if he's getting bored, like I hear a lot of these comments are referring to. There's a lot of boredom with these high capacity children, and so there wasn't a really good solution to that, and which got me looking into the process of what is the challenge program, what is the HiCap program, because we didn't know about it. Otherwise, Kevin could have probably been in the program a lot earlier. So we were able to get him in there. So that there's that piece that we're missing, is like there's not a lot of awareness. So Kevin gave me he wrote this out. He's a very highly capable student, and he wrote out a paper last night. He whipped it out. It's like an essay. So I'll try to get through it in my minute and 38 seconds. As a former student of the highly capable program and the independent classroom version at that, I have to say that it has completely changed my life. I'm not even joking. I think a teacher initially recommended me for the high cap program back in 4th grade, which I think was back in 2013, and I had to take a test to get in. I remember that I easily got past the test and went to the class at Roosevelt with Mrs. Kirkendall for just 5th grade. Since then, not a single aspect of the public education system has even gotten close to the quality of the education I got from that 1 year. I literally can't stress this enough. I've been taking the most advanced classes possible since middle school, and nothing has ever impacted me nearly as much as that 1 year. That 1 year I took in 5th grade single-handedly improved my math, writing, presentation making, and even public speaking skills more than probably the entirety of my public education combined. I learned how to write 5-paragraph essays, something that has evolved into a love and mastery of writing papers in college. I learned advanced math and memorized multiplication tables to play 6 at a literal math competition, something that combined with the class's focus on math helped me my love of math grow to know, having finished the entirety of college calculus by the end of fall my senior year. I don't know if you caught that part. He's finished college calculus, which boggles my mind. I literally acted a part in Shakespeare during that year and had to make at least a dozen trifolds and oral presentations. These kinds of things were entirely gone the moment I entered middle school. I haven't even included the music and dancing stuff we had to do. I had 3 younger brothers, and hearing their experience combined with my own, I had a pretty good understanding of the public education system, and even just, oh shoot. I got another page and a half.
Well, I know you're reading his statement, so if you would like to send his statement to us, we would be happy to read the rest of his statement.
All right, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And next on the list, we have Sarah Waite.
Promoting.
All right, Sarah, it looks like you are on the panel.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Let me see. Can you see me now?
No.
I am not sure. Oh, let me see. Okay. I don't know what's going on, but unfortunately, I will just leave my video off then.
Okay, we can hear you, so that's
okay.
fine. Not everybody turns on their camera.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would love to be able to. I'm a hand talker, so it would be good. But unfortunately, we'll just go with what it is. My name is Sarah Waite. I am a parent of 4 children that attend VPS, and you heard from my daughter earlier. And I would just like to add my voice to those that have been added. I've really appreciated the discussion by the board and echo the sentiment that we need more time to make the best decisions on behalf of these highly capable students. One question I have that I know can't be answered right now, but just kind of pose out there is my daughter, who is now in 8th grade, started the program, the highly capable program, in 1st grade. And that seemed I have 3 daughters that have been through the program, are currently in the program. And it seemed like that was a really effective model to start that early because of the transition being more difficult, as has been brought up in 3rd grade. And so, Mike, I feel like as other parents have addressed, that it becomes that we are not doing, the enrollment is declining, but maybe we aren't looking at the proper reasons why it's declining. And that is something I would love to have addressed and looked into further. I just want to further echo some experiences of my 2 kiddos. You heard from my one. My 8th grader has really been the most beneficial because she started so early in the program and got to have that rigorous learning right from the get-go. She has a diagnosis of ADHD as well. And that was something that was never a real issue until she reached middle school and had to enter some more conventional approaches to education. And thankfully, she attends iTech, where they do a lot of project-based learning and accelerated learning. And I have seen the difference in those classes and being able to continue in that model that she had in the high cap program. In her own words, as has been stated, a life-changing program, and she would like the opportunity for her voice and the voice of other people that she knows to be to expound on that. And so again, we're just like advocating for more time for these options. And then I want to speak to my 8-year-old's current experience. As you have heard, in a gen ed classroom, even being identified as highly capable, she was not able to get the services she needed. She would come home claiming distraught because she was bored, and that isn't anything against any of the teachers, as had been said. They are already stretched so thin, and it makes sense. And she understood as a 6-year-old that the kids that need more help are going to get the teacher's attention. And so her attention wasn't, she wasn't challenged, but then entering the program in this 3rd grade has been life-changing and very, has been really, oh, sorry, no, I still have time. Anyway, she had difficulty connecting on a social level as well. She liked to talk with the adults in her life prior to HiCap, but I have really seen growth and progress by being in the self-contained environment. She has found peer relations, and she loves going to school now. And she used to cry to me that she has no friends, and now that is the opposite feeling. She's no longer a shy wallflower kind of kid. And I would just really like to expand that opportunity and absolutely make this a more equitable experience. I currently have a kindergartner wreaking havoc on kindergarten because I feel like he's not being challenged. And so I just really think that it's important to look at this, and I'll add my voice to others that that we really need to continue to look at the self-contained model. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And yes, thank you. Sorry about that distraction with the timer. I appreciate your patience on that. Next on the list, we have Dana Nelson. But I don't know if I see a Dana Nelson.
Not spotting them.
All right, Dana, if you are on, but maybe your screen name does not show your name, I apologize, but we do not see you. So we are going to go on. Next on the list is Sally Snyder. Looks like she's under Katie Bauer's account.
Promoting.
All right, it looks like you guys are promoted. If you can hear us, you can unmute yourself if you are there, Sally, and
start my
there we
video.
go. There we go. Sally, if you could say your name and affiliation with the district, you will have 3 minutes.
My name's Sally Snyder, and I'm a parent with the district. And I just wanted to talk about an item on the consent agenda tonight. That's item number H, a purchasing agreement for respirator fit testing N95 masks. The rationale is outlined L&I directive. Personnel identified to participate in COVID-related high transmission activities are required to wear N95 respirator. They must complete a medical questionnaire, training, fit testing prior to the use of an N95 mask, may be the first year of an ongoing annual service. The cost for this is $49,050. And I had a couple questions regarding that. How is staff identified to participate? And can we get a copy of the medical questionnaire? Is this a video training, or what kind of training is involved in this participation? I don't believe it's a law that it's optional. If you could let us know if it's optional or not. And I wanted to talk a few minutes about OSPI, the performance. Hopefully you can see those numbers there. These are the numbers district-wide off the OSPI website from fall of 2021. 44% of the students district-wide overall are meeting English, 12% math, and science 50%. It feels like $50,000 for an optional N95 purchasing agreement maybe could be better spent for bringing up these numbers. And I also, after listening to all these comments about the high cap, would wonder how high cap in the same class as someone who's only succeeding 12% in math or 44 in English would work. And then I guess my last question is, with Omicron has come and gone, why would we need to be doing this now to spend $50,000 on this?
Time.
It doesn't feel like there's a need.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
Next on the list, we have Alicia Meadows.
I thought I did. My paper was over it. Hi. Oh, so.
Thank you. Next on the list, Alicia. I don't know if I see an Alicia.
Do not see her present in the list.
Okay. We will come back. Next on the list is Nicole Rudd.
Promoting.
Hey, Nicole.
Hi.
You'll have 3 minutes if you want to state your name and affiliation with the district.
Hi, I'm Nicole Rudd. My daughter Hazel, where is she? She is in Mrs. Wong's third grade highly capable class, and I'm actually yielding my time to her to talk about her experience in Mrs. Wong's class.
Yes. Okay. This school year has to be the absolute best year I have ever experienced. The reasons are mostly because of the people I have met here, but I will list the following reasons. The first reason is definitely my teacher, Mrs. Wong. She is the best teacher I have ever met. I love Miss Wong because of her teaching methods. I love the math challenge in the morning and reading workshop. I also love how well we function in this class because everyone loves to learn as much as me, and Miss Wong makes sure we all have a growth mindset to be our best self. The next reason is because of mathematics and reading. I love doing higher level math and con at school, and I enjoy learning math through music. I love con because it feels nice to accomplish something that you've been trying to do for a humongous amount of time. Sometimes when I do a con unit, I cannot stop saying, yes, yes, yes. I like multiplication station because I enjoy multiplication because all the chants that Mrs. Wong created. She likes singing as much as me. They make multiplication much, much easier. The best reason I love Mrs. Wong's third grade highly capable class is because of all the ways I've grown, mentally and spiritually. I want to thank Ms. Wong for being such a great teacher who has taught me almost all I need to know about third, fourth, and fifth grade math.
school used to be so easy. Now in Miss Wong's class, I am challenged daily to be my best self. School is phenomenal now, and I wish I could go to class every day. I feel Mrs. Wong understands me. I no longer blurt in class, and it's easy for me to make friends. She helps us with friendships too. I also want to say that I love my class, and I feel horrible for all the kids who have not experienced the happiness and joy of High Cap. Finally, I would like to conclude my passage by thanking Mrs. Wong for always supporting me, and I would also like to thank all of my classmates for being such good friends and encouraging me. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts with you.
I'd also just like to, since we have a few minutes, just say Hazel came from one of the smaller schools. She came from Washington, where I believe she was one of 2 kids identified in her grade level. And although she was identified in 1st grade, she received nothing until she was in the highly capable self-contained classroom. She was also waitlisted for that classroom. So I'm a little confused about the lack of enrollment when we weren't actually able to get into the classroom when we were initially trying to. So anyway, just to sum up, we're very happy with the program, and I encourage you to please keep it going. Thank you for taking your time to listen to us.
Bye.
Thank you. Next on the list, we have Tara Wolf-Stanton.
Promoted.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Woohoo. Okay. I don't know how I unjoined for a second there, and I don't see how to share my video, but since you can hear me, I'll just keep going.
Yep, we can hear you. So you can please state your name and affiliation with the district first, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Great. My name is Tara Wolf-Stanton, and I'm a parent of a student in 5th grade at Eisenhower. I just want to start by saying, listening to everybody's experience has shown me that ours is not unique by any means, and that it really is kind of heartbreaking to hear how many kids have had the same experience that my older son had, that my younger son is not having at all in a self-contained classroom. I have an 8th grader who did high caps via his gen ed class because I was not able to transport him at the time, and a 5th grader with Miss Kirkendall. The difference is night and day. My 8th grader received 0 difference in his education from what his peers were receiving, and his needs were not met at all. This negatively affected him and his self-esteem because of constantly being in trouble, or that whole board thing, and then you're not acknowledged what your needs are. And we're still battling that in 8th grade now, his ability to see himself as even worthy of being in the honors classes that he is tested into. So that's pretty frustrating. My 5th grader, on the other hand, has shown such an increase in his confidence overall, and so much more adventure and involvement in his own learning. He is learning to be a thinker, and his lifelong curiosity is being cultivated by his teacher and this group of students who just are so involved and supportive of each other inside and outside of the classroom. It's just an incredible thing to witness, and it is hard to think of what could have been for my older son, who's very similar. So for that, I just want to say, please don't end what we have right now. Please keep the self-contained classrooms as an option. Please do not place the educational burden of high cap students on our amazing gen ed teachers who just don't have the ability to manage all of the variety of the students in their classroom. And that's it. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tara. And then it looks like there's a John Stanton signed up right after you. Is that a relative? Is a student?
Yes, that's my son, but he actually is not available.
Okay, no, that's fine. I wanted to make sure we didn't have to promote you back again. So
Okay.
we will skip John then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. That looks like the end of our list, but there were some people that we had to skip over because we didn't see. So I want to go back because I do think I see a couple people that might be on now. The first is Jamie Letnich. And I see Letnich, just the last name. I assume that is probably Jamie.
Promoting.
All right. Oh,
Hello.
that is not Jamie.
No, sorry.
I'm here too.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Deacon and Jamie Letnich, apologize for the connection. We're at a hotel in Florida. We're just here to encourage the district to continue to allow our kids to have access to these independent high cap programs. We're specifically having our son attend Eisenhower Elementary because of the high cap program. I don't even know where to begin with the benefits. I think you've heard the story a lot of times so far in this meeting. Struggling in a normal class, bored, acting out, getting in trouble for silly things because he wasn't being challenged. And the moment that he was able to join Miss Wong's class in second grade, it was like a totally different kid. He was starting to make friends more. He was challenged more in school. And I mean, the benefits just go on and on. And for kids that need that kind of assistance, that kind of structure and extra just work and things to challenge them, teachers like Miss Campos and Miss Wong have been instrumental. I mean,
We're looking forward to Miss Kirkendall.
yeah, the highlight of the pandemic was the fact that Dave got to have Miss Wong for 2 years in a high cap classroom, and to deny other kids that I think, I mean, you just see them everywhere.
I think we might have lost your connection. Oh, there we go.
Can you?
Is it back?
You're back.
Okay. Long story short, don't get rid of the high cap program. When kids have an opportunity, Miss Kirkendall and Miss Wong and Miss Campos, and get that structure that they need, it's so beneficial. And I really kind of question why the district's even considering it, but I don't have all the information, so I'll leave it at that. And we appreciate your time.
Perfect, thank you. We also, it looks like there is an Amber who had signed up, Amber P. I don't have a full name, and there's an Amber on the list. So I am guessing that might be the right person. I apologize if it is not, but I don't have the full name. So I guess let's promote Amber and see if that is the Amber P who signed up. Oh, the email, Amber Peterson, it looks like might be the last name for an email. Hi, Amber. Are you the Amber who signed up? Oh, it looks like you are muted. And we cannot hear you. We cannot hear you. Do you happen to have earphones in? Are you listening? Because it might not, if your microphone is not connected. No.
Your unmute button there, Amber. There's a little up arrow. You can click that and maybe try selecting another microphone.
Did you catch that, Amber? Down in the bottom left corner where it says mute, there's a little up arrow and it gives you your different microphone options. Select a microphone. Do not. Looks like you just muted. Oh, and if you're on a phone, I don't know, maybe your phone speaker is not connected. I don't know what to do.
May have just lost her there.
We cannot hear you at all. I am so sorry. No. If you have comments that you would like to submit, you can always submit comments to us in writing. I apologize that and it's hard to problem solve through a computer. It seems to be perhaps with your microphone, with whatever microphone or speaker that you're using, or if you have a different device, you can call in as well to the meeting. But I'm going to, let's go through the list. I think we got to everybody except for there was a Dana Nelson. See if any of these others are on. And then Alicia Meadows. I don't see either of those. And then Amber. I apologize, Amber, that we were not able to hear you. But if you would like to just send us your comments in writing, we would be glad to read those. With that, it looks like we are at the end of our public comment time. So we are now, let me pull up the rest of our agenda. Thank you all to everybody who gave public comment tonight. We appreciate hearing all of your comments, and thank you for those who are waiting. I know we had a lot of comments to listen to tonight, so we appreciate your patience. And I especially want to thank the students that were able to give public comment. I know it's probably a little easier on a screen, but I know to speak to a whole bunch of adults takes some bravery, so we appreciate that. Next on our agenda, we are moving into the action portion of our meeting. The first thing that we are doing is approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve our minutes?
I move.
Thank you, Director Sproul. And do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Any comments? All right, we will move to vote for the approval. Director Decker?
Approve.
Director Smith?
Approve.
Director Sproul?
Approve.
And Director Zavala?
Approve.
And I also vote to approve, so the motion passes. And then tonight, our other action item that we have is a consent agenda. It is for instructional and administrative support services. And also the fiscal support services. Do I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Director Decker. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Was that Director Zavala? Yeah, perfect, thank you. And any comments or questions on the consent agenda?
Oh, I just want to make a comment that when we have our meetings sorry, now I'm losing my thread, so sorry. But when we have the board workshop, not workshop,
Committee of the whole.
The committee of the whole, we go through each one of these consent agenda topics line by line. And so if you're ever interested in what we've talked about, you can look at our committee of the whole to understand what each of these things are. We have already reviewed, we have asked questions of different people. So this is not the first time it's been presented to the board, nor is it the first time it's been presented to the public. So I just want to make sure people understand that they do have the opportunity to look at these things before our general meetings.
Thank you, Director Decker. Any other comments before we vote? All right, well, I will put it to a vote. Director Decker,
Approve.
Director Smith,
Approve.
Director Sproul,
Approve.
and Director Zavala.
Approve.
And I also vote to approve. So the motion passes. And then last on the list, we have Board of Directors report. I don't know that we have any items to report at this time. I did want to just, I always like to kind of just share what our upcoming meetings are. Next Tuesday is our committee of the whole meeting, Tuesday at 5:30. That is a virtual meeting. Our committee of the whole meetings, as Director Decker had shared, are to start looking at next month's agenda items. And so we go through all of these items, contracts, policy changes, things like that, ask questions of our district to make sure that we understand the things that we'll be voting on in our May meeting. So that is next Tuesday, and the following Tuesday, we typically have a study session. Our study session is going to be canceled because we will all day be having a board retreat at the district office, which is also a public meeting in person. And that is all from me. Do any other board directors have anything to report? All right, well, with that, we are going to recess to an executive session. We are recessing to an executive session that is personnel to discuss the performance of a public employee with no action to follow. We anticipate that it will be 30 minutes. And so we will come back at the end of that to adjourn the meeting, but again, there's no action to follow. And that is it. So thank you to everybody that tuned in tonight. We appreciate the discussion, the public comment, all of the engagement, and thank you. So we are recessed. All right, we are back from our executive session. It is 9:05 p.m. And as mentioned, there's no action to follow from our executive session. And so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you to everybody who stuck around and turned in. Thank you.